fine.
Are you sore?
No.
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
You're not fucking bullshitting me.
I don't.
Okay, so you don't know how to train hard. Okay, so we'll fix that.
Hey everybody, Tim Edmonds, Marketing Director here at elitefts. I was working with our executive producer Josh as we were building out some of the Train Your Ass Off series, and we came across some unused footage, kind of a lost episode of Dave giving a series of tips and tricks on how to train and what the Train Your Ass Off series was going to be all about. We thought it was too good to pass up, so we decided to make an episode out of it, and you'll check it out right here.
What you're about to see are clips taken from an event we created called Train Your Ass Off with Dave Tate. Two main objectives to this event with one overreaching goal. The two main objectives are to teach the best technique possible on one of the main lifts. In this case, it was the squat. The second objective was to be able to teach effort and intensity so they understand what training hard really is. And then from there, it's much easier to grasp and understand what training submaximally is. And then the overreaching goal of all this is for them to be able to utilize this information to make their training better and to have their lifestyle help their training instead of take away from their training. When's the last time you guys squatted heavy? A week? So nobody just like 3 days ago or anything like that?
Yesterday.
Okay, and what type of training was it? Heavy?
Heavy. Max effort. I went for a single.
And how did you do?
Didn't get a PR, but I wasn't trying to get a PR. I just wanted to go heavy and go
For what did you use for the exercise?
Oh, squat. Straight bar.
Straight bar squat? Okay, on a box, no box?
No box.
Okay. You're gonna do max effort fucking.
That's fine.
Are you sore?
No.
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
You're not fucking bullshitting me.
I don't.
Okay, so you don't know how to train hard. Okay, so we'll fix that. I'm gonna bust your balls a little bit. Okay, that's just how I am. Don't take things too personal. Bust mine back, I don't care. All right, what we're gonna do, I have two goals, okay, for this thing. Today is, the first one is to get your squat technique on point, right? And the benefit of having a smaller group, I don't know if some of you guys have been to seminars in the past, like a Learn to Train seminar. Any of you been to Learn to Train? Okay, so half of you have. You have? Yes, no? Okay. Basically with the Learn to Train, we'll take you through, and we don't do them anymore anyhow, so it doesn't matter. But we would take them through, teach you how to squat. But what you run into with that is, if I'm teaching somebody how to squat, the maximum number I can actually work with if I have an assistant helping me is 15 people tops. And that's with a 2-hour time frame on teaching them how to squat and without them working up at all. That provides about 55 reps, technical reps, to be able to help fix the technique. If somebody's in a fatigue state from a squat, that doesn't help build technique, right? Which means there's gotta be a lot of sets. So, going to a seminar and doing sets of 5 and 10, isn't really gonna help technically. You need to do a lot of sets of singles and doubles. Well, the problem with that is you start doing it, you gotta have enough, you gotta be able to see what you do first, right? And then start making the corrections. And it takes at least 50 reps to be able to do that. So I couldn't do a squat seminar with 40 people. For me, it would be impossible to do, to not have any impact. Or, what I'm saying? I would have minimal impact that I don't think it would be worth the value that anybody would pay. With 4 people though, it's a whole different fucking game now, okay? Because 4 people is a normal sized training group, right? 4 people, we can move at a pretty good clip and get all the technical stuff fixed, taken care of, locked in, and actually work up. So I can find your technical weak points and I can find your physical weak points. So even with the Learn to Train, I could never find somebody's physical weak point unless it was glaring, because I couldn't work them up heavy enough. Say they're 600-pound squatter, 500-pound squatter, or an 800-pound squatter. You got to work up. You see what I'm saying? So that's even more sets with that. where with 4 people, that's the benefit is we're gonna lock your squad in, and the cues might be a little fucked up, but I don't care, okay? So I'm saying this more for the camera than I am for you. I had a guy last week that I had to tell, take your toes, curl them up underneath and turn your feet in like this. Try to screw the floor this way. That's probably the most fucked up cue I've ever had to use in my entire life, but it worked because when you're talking about cueing or rooting of the foot, everybody's goal and the objective is the same for everybody's end objective is the same regardless of who the coach is, to have the entire foot pressing into the ground, right? So if you're to leave an imprint in sand and you're pushing up on something, your feet would push completely down. There wouldn't just be this imprint. You see, you get what I'm saying? So you don't want just a heel imprint. You want everything. So people say 3 points of contact. I'm saying the whole frickin' foot, boom, straight into the floor. So what that means is if I have somebody that's always like rolling forward on their toes, I may have to say, sit on your heels. And then people are gonna see a frickin' Instagram clip, say Dave's an idiot because he's telling people to sit back on their heels and not do 3 points of contact. I don't give a fuck about what people are gonna say about me cueing your foot if it goes anywhere online, because all I give a fuck is your squat gets better and your foot does what it's supposed to do. Everybody learns differently, so the cues are gonna be different. So don't, just from an educational standpoint, don't assume one cue is gonna work for everybody. And how many of you guys work as trainers? So half of you? Okay. As we move along, I'll get to know more about you because I'm going to be asking more questions to kind of know how training fits into your life and all the other kind of stuff as well. But for the trainers, you got to keep that in mind too, because you may hear a cue or hear me talking about a cue and say, man, that's good. I need to try that with my client, but then it doesn't work right. All right. Anterior pelvic tilt's probably another one. You know, it's like, oh man, you know, you don't want to ever teach somebody to, you know, how I used to teach a squat 20 years ago, you know, push your ass back, arch really hard. But the goal of all that was actually a neutral spine. The goal wasn't to have somebody with a big rounded back, but you know, the internet, I don't want to say the internet was in its infancy, but training information on the internet was in its infancy. And I was just using the same cues that I use in the gym. And when I would go to a seminar, that was the most common. But then if it was, I went to a seminar and somebody, you know, looked like their back looked like a bow, you know, like, it's like, no, man, you can't do that. You got to push your hips forward, you know, to keep that locked in spine. So don't get caught up in the cues. Just get caught up in the cues that are for you, all right? Because you know what position the body is supposed to be in when you squat. That's an assumption that I'm making because you're all competitive powerlifters. So you kind of know, you have a clue. All right, some people don't even have a clue. At least you have a clue. So we're gonna kind of work from there. So if I say something that's weird, there's a reason for it. And if you don't understand the reason for it and I don't tell you, ask me, and then I'll tell you. Because if it doesn't make sense, I have to tell you why I'm saying what I'm saying so it does make sense. Because all I care about is the end result. I don't care how we get there, okay? So that's my first objective, is to teach you guys all how to squat the best that you've ever squatted in your life, and do so in such a way that you walk away and you kind of have a mental checklist that you can run through. So when you get under the bar, you can not, you know, the way we learn is humans, is basically sport or whatever it is. I show you, okay? I can show you and tell you what to do. And I'll determine if you're a visual learner, audible learner, how you learn best. I'll figure that out just as we go through the sets. I figure that out, and then basically somebody shows you. And then they start cueing you, right? And then you're just reacting to the cues. And then over time, you'll start cueing yourself. Okay, so once we lock in your cues, I want you to start trying to cue yourself. So when you leave, every time you squat, you're going to be cueing yourself. So it's not like raging motherfucker squat. It's, raging motherfucker, sat, head, chest, whatever your checklist is going to be is what your checklist is. And then over a period of time of doing that, you'll no longer have to do it because it becomes automatic. Okay, that's how you learn. Okay, so anybody that says queuing is worthless doesn't understand how people learn, and how people are coached. The plan is to work up. I have yet to not have somebody break a PR. So, and that's out of the 2 groups, but that's not really a huge brag either because it's 8 people. It's like, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and make it sound like, yeah, I've had like 500 people in the last 2 weeks and they all broke PRs. But let's say you he broke a PR today and he's been out here as an intern for how long?
2 months.
2 months. I haven't really done anything strength training wise at all with him. I mean, he'll tell you, he'll like, what should I do? Well, just do your normal squat and then go do this and this and go home. It's just been working very simple technical things, and he hit a 90-pound PR. Without even, we've put 0 focus on anything else except working the technique, and not even really that hard. It's just getting back into the flow. Now the next phase, we're gonna work the technique a little bit harder with him, where I'll be more involved instead of having, the people that train out here doing most of it. I'll be a little bit more involved to fine tune it because they got him, to go from point A to point B is pretty, if you know what you're doing, it's pretty easy. Point B to point C gets a little bit more complicated. What I thrive on is going from, Z to who knows where, what I'm saying, to a different alphabet. I love that, because that's where you got to really think and figure out like, what the fuck, I love that. It's that top 5% a trainer will never use, because you always, if you want to be a good trainer, we can talk about this later, you have to be very good at training beginners. That's how you become a very good trainer, is be the best trainer you can of beginners, and you'll never have to worry about clients the rest of your life again. That's even as a strength coach. That's the first objective. The second objective is I want you to know what training hard means, okay? This is the biggest struggle that I've seen working with people in here. And this is not a public gym. It's a private gym, so it's very few people that actually come in here and train. I don't want anybody to come here and train that doesn't compete, because I want to, it's not me totally being a dick, but I'm not charging them anything. I'm doing it because I love it, and I want to sharpen my skill set. So if they're competing, I got to sharpen my skill set, especially the better they get. They get up into top 10, top 20, something like that. Things get a lot harder because now you're trying to mitigate injuries. You're trying to figure out how to, navigate, a terrain full of fucking landmines. And there's a point in time, some of you may have already seen it, where you have to know how to train really, really hard to make gains, but then you become elite, you become a little bit higher level, then that completely turns itself upside down, where you have to be very good at training economy and training efficiency and knowing when to back down. I hit, a huge PR today, and
Here we go. Let's go. Go on, Dave. Come on. Squeeze it out, Dave. There you go. Yeah, Dave. Motherfucker.
A few moments later.
I'll ask you, I'll just throw this out to you. It was a squat PR, and how many reps do you think, total training wise, that I would have done? And this ended up being, before it was said, a 100-pound PR over what my previous best was a year ago. How many reps do you think, total training wise, I would have done in the last 4 weeks with all exercises? Just anybody throw a number out. Huh? 25. Out of all exercises. I mean, accessories, supplemental.
Are you including warm-ups?
Yep. Well, yeah, yes, active warm-ups. Passive warm-ups, no, because you can't count the reps of like, RPR and stuff like that.
160.
Okay. Anyone else? Hundreds? Yeah. What if I told you 5? So up until today, there were 5 reps. That was it. So that's mastering, the training. I'm not telling you to do that, right? I got 2 prosthetics, so I got to be real careful. I don't have to be real careful, but I look at wear and tear completely different than somebody else did. So the last time I squatted was not last week, it was the week before. I squat every other week. That week I hit a PR on it, and it took me 5 reps to actually work up to the weight that I was going to do. It's a reverse band thing too. So the reverse bands kind of do help, it minimizes the number of reps you have to do compared to not having, like if you're using chains, you're going to probably need to do more reps than a reverse band, just the nature of the band. And then I only squat every other week. And what do I do for assistance work in between the training sessions? Nothing, because it takes me, I will be normalized physically Thursday. I'll get sore, I'll start cramping sometime later today. I'll get the shits tomorrow. I'll probably have the shits the next day. Then, I'm on camera. This is going to get great. Then the hemorrhoids are going to light up like a motherfucker 2 days from now. Then by Thursday, it's going to be like, okay, we're good. But as far as the squat goes, I'm done for the year. So now I can focus on, other things and different training things. So that's an extreme, a far end extreme. Now, on the other end, I can say when I was training with John Meadows, doing more bodybuilding type stuff, there was probably no training day that had less than, there's some back days that were 60 sets. So some training days were 600 to 1,000 total reps. You see, so, that's the variance that we're talking about. So I'm not going to have you do 1,000 reps, all right, or 600 reps. But when people talk about RPEs of supplemental exercises and accessories, and I don't care if it's block training, linear training, or conjugate training, certain exercises have more bang for their buck than others, and they're put in your program for a specific reason. So you'll have your main lift or your warm up first, then your main lift. Then usually the exercise after that's going to have greater significance than the ones that follow. And that one of greater significance is probably going to be more like a strength range. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is pretty much every training program outside of like Chico and things that only do the main lifts. And then it kind of works from there. When I ask people how hard are they training on the 6 reps, they may say, if it's like an RPE for if there was one for reps. And I have one I created for reps. Meadows uses one. I need to use it again with the people that I train because they are fucking up. And they don't understand what the fuck I'm trying to tell them to do. But sometimes you want to train 4 reps shy of failure, or maybe 6 reps shy of failure. I'm going to show you what 10 is. Okay, because once you know what 10 is, then you're going to probably find that what you think is 8 is really 5. Okay, so that's my other objective. So that's kind of where the train your ass off part comes in. So with that in mind, this training session is going to be far, very far, I mean like whacked out far from optimal. Okay, it's not optimal. This is not something you're going to go and repeat unless you don't have a meet for, you're out in off season. You're like, man, I wonder if I did that again now, how well I would do. That's the only significance it's really going to have, but it's going to be fun. All right, there's going to be challenge sets, stuff like that. It's going to be fun. And as we go through, I'll show you how and tell you how you can implement it into your own training. But those are the two biggest objectives. So we'll warm up. I'm going to show you some of the warm-up things that I have everybody do, regardless of who it is. And then you need to implement that into whatever your own warm-up strategy is. If you want to. I think you should, and after I explain why, I think you're going to want to at least put a couple of the movements in there. The warm-up shouldn't be something that's going to wear you out, unless your conditioning is so piss poor that it needs to be in there. People will ask me, what do I think about the winning warm-up? I think the winning warm-up's fine if it fits the training, objectives that you have. What do you think of Rustin's warm-up? What do you think of this warm-up? They're all kind of the same, where my answer is, the truthful answer is, I really don't fucking care. What are you doing for your warm-up? Because is it working? Because if you're doing too much, it can fuck you up. Because here's the thing about powerlifting, and I'm not going to say that these guys don't understand it, because Matt most definitely does. What are you going to do with the meet? You know what I'm saying? Can you have a 9-phase warm-up protocol? And let's say you did do it. I don't know how long you've been competing or how long you've been around the sport, but man, I would be sitting there like, the fuck are you doing, dude? All right, and I always had a rule when I was a trainer is to never make my clients look stupid. You know what I'm saying? It was just, I wouldn't want somebody to make me look stupid. So, especially, and I worked with Gen Pop, and they were corporate executives. So I could have, the president of Huntington Banks or the CEO of Huntington Banks in Columbus training him on the floor, and his staff, right, walking on treadmills, and I'm not going to have him stand on one leg doing pink dumbbell curls with a Bosa ball. I am not going to do that. Can you see why? Just the optics of that. Forget about the training and all the other benefits. There's a million ways that you can accomplish the same objective. Right? The guy still is in a position of power that with his staff, regardless of, I don't know what his staff interactions are and so forth, but I'm not going to put him in a position to where, he's going to feel like, what the fuck? That makes sense? All right, so I kind of get that feeling like I used to see people do things at meets and be like, first off, is this necessary? There's necessary, specific, there's certain things associated with training, and you got to be able to, two extremes of a warm-up, you have to be able to do a warm-up in your training that's going to accomplish the objective you need, which is to do the training session. But I also strongly believe you need to be in good enough condition that worst case scenario, you walked into a meet and for some reason you found out after you walked into the meet you were being called on deck. Which means, oh shit, you got to pass that attempt, go get your shit on, and go out and take your opener with no warm-ups. So I'm not saying that is going to happen. But I will say I have seen it happen to Chuck Vogelpohl one time. And after that, this is it should never happen again, by the way. They just decided to flip the 220s and make them first instead of starting first with the lighter weight classes like they always did. And we didn't know until we walked in the door. And he's like, well, fuck, I guess we got to pass this one, that attempt. Like, well, and he still had gear. It wasn't multi-ply, it was single ply. So the gear is a little bit, it's tight. It's like, fuck, he got through the meet, but he had no warm up. All right, so some of that's a mental game. But I think if you're really preparing yourself to be able to be competitive, that shouldn't scare you. if you got thrown into that situation, it shouldn't be like, oh, I have to pull out of the meet. It should be like, okay, we can manage this. We just need to lower, you know what I'm saying? Lower the first attempt, see how that goes. If need be, you know, maybe do some stiff leg, you know, something, you know, to be able to manage and move through. So I can be very lengthy and wordy as well, as you already are knows. But those are the things there. The one thing I have to have you guys tell me though is if it's too much, just tell me, you know, it's too much. Back it off, you know, or just rack it. You're not gonna look, even if I'm saying that you're a pussy, you're not gonna look like you're a pussy by stopping, okay? I've not trained you before. So I'm not gonna push you to like limits that, I'm not trying to scare you, okay? But I had an incident last week where it could have been avoided had, you know, I watched nonverbals a little bit better, which I will do, and if something would have been said. So outside of that, before we do the warm-ups, I wanna thank you guys for coming. I only did 3 of these things. I really didn't think anybody was gonna sign up when I first did them. I really didn't, and they did. So in each one, I've learned how to make it better. You know, for instance, today, you know, I apologize again, you know, for that, but now I know I got to change what I put on the, you know, what I send out. So it's, you know, I can either look at these things as being, you know, fuck, I fucked that all up, or I can look at it as a positive and then flip it. So if I decide to continue doing these, you know, in the future, I know what to change. And the other 2 groups have already told me, so it's kind of already a given. I'm going to create a mailing list that's just got you guys on it. It's not going to be like a Facebook group type bullshit type thing. It's just a fucking email list, right? With you guys and then the other 8 people that went through the other groups, which are essentially, it's all the same thing. It's just I tried to break you guys up based upon the best demographic I could. You know, where last week none of them were competitive powerlifters. So you don't want a competitive powerlifter. It just, I can do it, but it's going to make it a lot harder. That way, if I continue to do these, which I do think I'm going to because they've been a blast for me to do, and everybody's loved them so far, you're going to be the first ones to know. So that's one benefit. Once you guys get through sometime next week, I'm going to send a survey out to everybody, you know, just to get feedback on what I can do to make it better, because it's still just going to be me. This isn't going to grow and become 10 people. It's still always going to be 4 people. From your feedback, it may drop to 3. You know, I don't know. But your feedback's going to determine, you know, kind of where it goes from here. And I need that. You know, I appreciate bad feedback more than I do good feedback. Now, my marketing and media staff love the good feedback because we can use that to help promote the other ones. But this thing, as you're going to find out, it's not for everybody. All right, and that's what the first group, that was their first thing, is look, you need to let people know this is not for everybody. So that you got to be serious about the training. And anyhow, fuck it, let's roll. All right, so we're going to go through the warm-up, and we're going to come back to the squat.